Here's why getting your money's worth at a dinner table is getting you less money overall and getting you further back from your goals that you want to get. Now, working with thousands of South Asian individuals, there's one key commonality between every single person that struggles with their body weight is that they love food and they love getting their money's worth. Especially Gujaratis, which is a large part of our client base, love getting value for money. So when they go out for dinner and they've spent 40, 50 pounds on their dinner, they want to get their own plate, they want to get the kids' plate, they want to get their wife's or their husband's food, and they want to finish it all off because the fearfulness of going to waste is a big key factor in like longer term cultural habitual patterns. Now, these are not necessarily wrong. I love getting my money's worth. I won't spend money on something if I don't think it's going to get a return on investment or it's not going to yield me benefits in some way, shape or form. But when it comes to fat loss or when it comes to getting value for money, you always have to look at the ramifications of your decisions to really tally up whether it's worthwhile. So let's present this option. Every time you go out for dinner, you get value for money. You have 2 or 3 plates, you finish off other people's food, and then you end up with this calorie surplus of calories where you've got your money's worth of money, but you've got your money's worth of calories too, which means that your diet for the rest of the week is never going to be conducive. It's always going to be, you staying in that plateau, always staying in that body weight range, or equally you're just rising and rising and rising, and your health is paying the consequence of your eating and value for money aspects. So when we look at helping people from our clients who are South Asian overcome this desire to get their money's worth, we have to look at, is it really value for money? What's the worst case scenario of them leaving food? Now, most people see that as a traditional cultural thing. They'll see a white guy go, well, why do you need to get value for money? Why do you need to eat 2 plates of food? And they'll feel like it's me attacking the culture or me attacking their habitual patterns from passed on generations. But it's not. It's just looking at the logical answer of why do we need that many calories from that dinner to be able to have the things that we need? Because there's a cost to everything. So if we get our value for money, we get a cost of calories and we incur the cost of no fat loss. And if we flip that on its head, what is the worst case scenario if we have 1 plate of food and that food goes to waste? What really happens to that food that you cannot cope with, that you need to eat that food there and then? Or is it just something that you learn over time? Because habits can be broken. Habits that are inconducive or not conducive to your health, your fat loss results, or your diet need to be questioned. Because if they were working for you right now in the right manners, in the right way, you wouldn't be looking at this page and you wouldn't be trying to lose fat and you wouldn't be in a poorer spot with your health. I don't know anybody, the 1,000 people that we've worked with to help them get in shape and stay in shape forever, I don't know anybody that still has that mindset of wanting to get the most and still actually stays in shape. Because it's a direct conflict of what the goal of staying in shape is. Because you can't always just do what you want and not accept the consequences of that. So let's break it down. If you want to eat and get your money's worth out of every meal that you go to, great, do it, but don't expect fat loss results. But if you want to change your health parameters, if you want to change your diet, if you want to change the way that you view food, and even if you don't want to change those things, but you want the outcome of not being overweight, diabetes, obesity, you're going to have to change some of those habits. So it's about challenging the nature of some of the habits that you've ingrained, you've been adopted, or that have been passed on through the years. What is the worst case scenario about you leaving food? What realistically happens when you eat or you leave food? I've got a friend called Adam who is always in shape, always relatively in shape, used to be a bodybuilder back in the day, and every time I go for dinner with him, fancy restaurants, earns a lot of money, dines lovely, lovely places, and everywhere I go, he never finishes his meals. And that's been the last 10 years. And I'm always dumbfounded by that because I'm in the same boat. I love to get the money. I like to finish a plate. I like to finish dinner. I've ordered it, so I want to finish it. And that was one of my problems with yo-yo dieting. So when I come to him and say, hey, just out of curiosity, it's like, you never seem to finish a full dinner. You have like 3 things and then you eat a quarter of this one, you eat a half of this one, and you eat a half of this one. And something profound he said to me is like, I'm not paying for food. I'm paying to be less hungry with nice taste. And then when he said that to me, it was a pass away comment, and it really changed the game for me when I'm looking at food. What is the goal of food? So psychologically, food is an enjoyment piece. It's this staple, it's this hedonic pleasure, same as drugs, alcohol. It gives you a high and an enjoyment. That's hedonism. We use something materialistic or in front of us to create an enjoyment internally. Hedonism, psychology, food is the same. And on the opposite side of things, physiologically, we need food to stay alive, right? We need nutrients, we need water, we need these calories, enough of them to sustain our body from being malnourished. That's one side of the coin, and then we've got this side of the coin, which most people have, and we need to find the blend between the two. To change your perspective on food, to change your perspective on getting value for money, or getting the most out of the dinner that you have, change the word from food to another hedonism: sex, drugs, alcohol. And I guarantee your headspace will change instantly when you recognize they're all doing the same thing. They're all giving you pleasure and enjoyment from an implement, a thing that creates internal happiness. So if you take the word food out and then you utilize the word drugs, which I like to use with my clients, it's like, okay, so you go to a night out and you're having a great time and there's endless amounts of drugs on the table and you've paid for 2 grams. Do you have to have all of those 2 grams to have a great time? And is there consequences to having the full 2 grams? Maybe that's if some of you have never took drugs and it's probably useless, but and neither have I. I just read it on the internet. Is when you look at alcohol, just because you've bought 4 bottles of wine doesn't mean you don't get any pleasure from half a glass to a bottle to 2 bottles to 3 bottles. There is a nature of enjoyment to a certain degree because everything has a law of diminishing returns. Food, drugs, alcohol, sex, it all has a diminishing returns of a bell curve. And what that means, a bell curve is like, it's a graph that goes up and up and up and up and up, and then it goes down the more that you have it over time. So the more alcohol that you have, the better it doesn't get. You know, I know, there's been a point in your life when you've drank so much that the night got worse and you ended up in a shit situation, woke up next to someone you shouldn't have, or you've been throwing up and you passed out. That didn't get better over time. And it's the same with food, because food is a pleasure, but over time there are negative consequences to that. It doesn't get better the more you eat of it. Now, this is an interesting fact when it comes to research around food, is the pleasure in the mouth in terms of the bites that you have and the enjoyment of the taste, it doesn't get any better after 5 to 6 bites of the same food. And you might be like, oh, but it does, bro, the crunch, it doesn't. If you have the same food 6 bites over, you will see an increase in enjoyment, and then you will see a baseline, and it will drop over time because you won't be able to taste it. You can't tell me that the last bite of a Dorito packet is better than halfway through the packet or the first bite. It's not. The last bite is you finishing it off because you're obligatory needing to. But everything has a bell curve of food, and when you realize that you don't need more to have a good time, you need the right amount to have a good time, that you need to learn that. Now, Sirish, one of our coaches, when I was coaching him to lose his weight and get in amazing shape over the last 3 to 4 years, we had this saying where he recognized that he was opting for getting his money worth or going in situations where he was trying to galvanize the enjoyment from everything that he did. It was more around alcohol, that he was having some problems navigating the dosages of alcohol that you could have and stay on course of a diet, to not ruin the day after, to not ruin a week's worth of progress, or even to make yourself feel crap the day and the weeks afterwards to be like productive, or the sleep quality that you get. And we had that saying where get the most from the least. And what we did with his alcohol and his food is we found the limit that he could enjoy the most without there being negative consequences. And this is how you get the most from your food without getting you feel that you're getting your money's worth, but in a different way. Because if we think about what food is, it's a pleasure and it's a substance and calories to fuel your body. You get enough that by just approximately eating anything more than just fucking lettuce and some chicken or some curry. And then on this side is like, you've got a pleasure button that goes around and it goes in a bell curve. So we need to find the most amount that you need to have a good time and not exceed that, because there are no positives from that. So if we know that you can get the most from 6 to 8 bites of a certain curry and have some rice with it and a little bit of naan, and you get this enjoyment piece, and after that second naan or the extra scoop of curry, there is no more benefit, it's just being eaten for, then you're not getting any benefit. You're not getting your money's worth. After that point, it's all negative outside of gluttony. So if we can associate you getting the most from the least and looking at the worst case scenario of what happens if I just leave that food, does it get better if I eat it, or am I just doing it because of old habits? And once you can associate this getting the most from the least, you'll start to notice other people that do that too. You'll notice that the people that stay in shape, when you're at a table of 8 people and you're looking at everyone that's on the table and you look at the skinniest person or the leanest person, you will see them not eat like you. You will see them eat enough and in the quantity that gets enjoyment, and they will stop when that enjoyment reduces and they feel full or satisfied, or they don't want to get any negative consequences from further eating. Those people that drink 3 or 4 drinks and are like, I'm good now. Why? Because if they go to the next level, there's only negative consequences. And finding that limit for people that want to get their money's worth changes the game. And once you can do that, you can blend all areas. So I want to challenge you if you feel like this way. The reason why I'm challenging you is because it's not conducive logically to everything that you're doing. Now, is there time in your life that you're going to eat more than this Nathan's fucking barometer? Absolutely. But it should be less than what you're doing already, because you're getting no results or little to. And over time, you can find when you do push and how you can pull. And there are times, maybe once, twice a month, even when I'm in a maintenance phase, that I will have more than I probably need, but it's in a dosage of once or twice a month as opposed to twice a week or once a weekend, which then changes the odds on your calorie balancing and how you navigate food. So just think about this. You wouldn't just keep doing more drugs and more alcohol to get more benefit, because there is a consequence to a bell curve to at some point you will not feel any benefit. You'll only have the ramification. Whereas food, you will not see the ramifications immediately, but you will see the ramifications for the week, the year, the 5 years, the 10 years afterwards of a compounding effect. The signs and symptoms that you'll feel in a short term that will be something that you need to hold on to is the difference between hungry and stuffed. Stuffed is an association that most people love, but when you recognize that stuffed is you overfilling your stomach, which is giving it more stress than it needs to and giving it more volume down the digestive tract than your body wants, you're giving it something it doesn't need and therefore creating a negative implication. So creating an element of being stuffed is something you want to move away from, and finding the difference between I'm not hungry anymore and I'm eating for the sake of eating, that gap between the two is the sweet spot. And that will be less than what you're eating right now. Because if you're eating 3 plates of food and you love the element of being stuffed, you'll hate this video and you're probably tuned out already. But once you align the fact that if you have 1 plate of food of things that you enjoy, and just that 1 plate, and you get that peak of enjoyment without there being negative consequences because you've had the right amount of food, you'll be able to balance things much better. So yes, you're letting food go to waste. Yes, you're not eating everything and getting every pound, dollar, penny worth of your food. But in essence, I would challenge you and say that you are. You're getting what you need from the food. You're getting what you need from your money, and going more create a negative consequence in the future. And then the last analogy, which is the best one, is most people give advice to their sons and daughters what they should take themselves. So if your daughter was at a nightclub in Marbella and she bought a bottle of vodka, you wouldn't encourage her to drink the whole bottle of vodka because she bought it. You would encourage her to be sensible with the amount so that she doesn't go home with a stranger and she doesn't incur negative consequences. And I think you should look at that as a way of looking at food, because it's the same thing, just different consequences. So if you want to keep spending your money and getting your money's worth, great. Have the consequences of being in the shape that you are, no dieting, no fat loss, and always being that constant cycle of yo-yo dieting and probably aggressively dieting during the week, not changing that behavior at the weekends and going around in that cycle. If you truly want to change your behavior around the things that make long-lasting change within the South Asian culture, you need to question why you're doing that. You need to question the habits that you've formed, gathered, accumulated, and actually got passed down to, and whether they're being conducive for the way of living that you want, and whether you can actually get the most from the least and balance both, because you can. We have hundreds of testimonials that do exactly that. They balance the two. Get your money's worth at your own risk, but I would say get the most from the least, enjoy it to the point where you need to, and then you're going to be able to balance everything together and have a great time when you're out socially and still get the shape that you want to too.